Tag, you're it. I'm Amanda Malcolm, and you're listening to You're It Girl, a podcast focused on you and what propels you. Because that past, it does not define you. Your time is now, and you're it, girl. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to You're It, Girl. The last episode, I kind of left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger. I know, I apologize about that. And actually, me welcoming you all back with such positivity, this episode is probably not going to leave you feeling very positive. But the purpose of it is really to kind of talk about and put out there that if you are dealing with somebody who you are close to in your life who is battling with substance abuse, that this type of thing that I'm going to talk about is really quite common. It's going to be a little bit shocking if you don't have any situations that you can compare to this, especially once I read a text message and once you hear a voicemail, but you've really got to put it into perspective of how low that person really is with where they are in the time period of their addiction. And so, going back to that last episode, I had asked you if you were about to launch something like this, a podcast like this, would you have told your mom, who is a part of many events in the story? What would you have done? It's too late for me to go back because I already did. And I feel very strongly about telling her and that I made the right choice. But I really, really struggled with it. Part of me felt like she didn't really deserve a warning. Part of me was very fearful of how she would react. And part of me knows how she feels about withholding information. My mom has this thing that withholding information is the same thing as a lie, if not worse. So I was very concerned that someone would send her something before I had the opportunity to tell her. And so I had a very close conversation with a very close friend. And we kind of talked about my ultimate fears if I were to talk about this story and some of the events of my childhood, that although not all of them are bad, there are so many good moments as well that I remember from my childhood. But this is obviously about my journey and where I am today and how I use those things that happened to give me the strength and the power now to sort of propel me into this place as far as who I am as a mother, a friend, a business professional. So although a lot of them are tragic, they're so important because they really shaped deep down who I am. But I was concerned that if I released it and didn't tell her, that it would be 100 times worse, her overall reaction, and that maybe she would do something serious that could never be undone. My biggest fear, honestly, and still is, that she could, hurt herself or end her life. And one time she did sort of threaten to do that. She had written the suicide note that she left for my little sister. And my little sister read the note. My mom had taken a gun. My brothers do have some firearms. They enjoy that as a hobby. And so she had taken a gun. She left her driver's license and she left for hours. And she did leave an actual suicide note. And so at first we kind of just thought my mom was doing it for attention. She kind of has that habit. But after about 8 hours of her being gone, we really actually thought that this time she might have actually done something. I actually had a conversation on the phone with one of my sisters, and I said, we haven't heard from her. The police haven't found her. Yes, we had the police looking at any bars she could be at. She said she'd be at the Salt River, so we had them down there. They did they did take it very seriously. They took it seriously because she took the firearm and because she had the suicide note. And she left her cell phone too. She left her cell phone and she left her ID. And they said, oftentimes people either take their ID so they can be identified or they leave it so that way they can't be easily identified. So they took it extremely seriously. And after about 8 hours, we really did think that maybe she was gone. We were very, very worried. And then she came strolling up to the house saying that we were all crazy, that it wasn't a suicide note and that, she wouldn't do something like that. So thinking back to that moment really brought up a lot of emotions as far as what this could possibly cause her to do. I know it wouldn't be my fault logically, but what it could cause her to do if she found this out after the fact. And so I was launching in less than a week, and this anxiety was really creeping up on me and fast. I was having deep anxiety that somebody was going to send her something again before I could, and I knew the impact and that burden could be a lot for her, and I could never go back to change it. So ultimately, I decided that I had to tell her to prepare her, to give her the best opportunity to sort of process it. So I did. And if you've ever spoken with someone who struggles with alcoholism or substance abuse, initially the conversation went like this. When I do call my mom, she often is usually cheery if it's during the day. And honestly, usually she talks a lot about herself. She doesn't really ask much about me. She doesn't really ask much about Kennedy. She really will be off on some tangent about something. This time it was about wallpaper. So after about a 10-minute conversation about wallpaper, she said, okay, well, tell me what it is that you're going to talk about. And so I said, well, Mom, I'm going to talk about the just sort of story of my life and circumstances, things that happened. And she said, well, all positive, right? I said, well, it's really just going to be topics and things that happened as, I was growing up. And suddenly her tonality shifts and she says, negative things? I said, I wouldn't really say negative. I said, I would just say that just, an honest account of what happened in my life. And she said, are you going to be talking about the fact that you think I was addicted to sleeping pills? Because I wasn't, and I'm not. And I very calmly said, Mom, that is in there. And she said, and what about all those things that happened with the monkeys? Are you going to talk about that? And I said, yes, Mom, I am. That's going to be in there as well. And that really set her off a ledge. She obviously started screaming and yelling and telling me that I was crucifying her and crucifying the family and airing out our dirty laundry and how dare I. And honestly, the conversation was going nowhere. So I had to do what I always do, which is, I'm sorry, Mom. When we get upset like this, we can't continue having the conversation. So I'm going to have to go. And I hung up. What came over the next 10 days got much worse, and it hasn't stopped. In fact, as I was writing this, I got 3 phone calls in a row at 10:34 p.m. at night. And she can no longer leave messages on my phone right now because my mailbox is full. In fact, my clients can't call me because my mailbox is full. Every time I delete them, I get more messages that are 2 to 3 minutes long, each with, a lot of times drunk rambling. And so my mailbox is full. So she couldn't leave any other messages. And I'm going to play one in a little bit. So just brace yourselves when you do hear that. After a week or so of this, I actually went back and listened to my full recording of the full episode, which we split into 2, episode 1 and 2. So again, if you haven't listened, go back because the context of those 2 episodes is important with what I'm talking about here. When I think it's in actually the second episode where I actually talk about the really strong, healthy boundaries that I had created with her. And I was so proud of them. You can hear it in my voice. I'd worked so hard on them. Never answering the phone, after 7 o'clock at night, screening her phone calls so that our conversations would usually end up positive, always answering when I only had a limited amount of time, usually when my daughter wasn't with me. Years of therapy, learning how to communicate with her so she wouldn't leave me hurtful messages. Years of practice, years. And honestly, it's like I'm starting all over because I now have 78 texts and there's probably more to come. And I'm going to read you one of them that I did share on TikTok. And I can't even believe I'm actually reading this out loud. But again, I'm trying to be more comfortable sharing these things as well. So this is the message I received from my mom. She says, fake, fake, fake. Fake life you're giving your daughter. All of it's fake. Now remember, some of this, you're going to see it's going to sound like typos or like I'm messing up, but it's because there's a substance, obviously, as she's texting these. So all of it's fake. Congratulations. Fitness is your name. Good luck with that. Hope you like it because now you're on your own now and forever. You should have checked the timeline of the lies you were telling because they can't be cooperating. The lies you tell, the story to tell, sublet entwined, but not the truth. Live with it. You create it again. Congratulations. Some of this gets not so nice. I hope all these fucking women losers follow you into the new cult that you've created. Would you kill yourselves? I'll say I told you so. Shame on you for conversing women in the following of false prophecy. I just got a warning from God. You are the Antichrist. Shit, new God. I don't believe in God. So take Christ. Go for it. Crucify yourself and anyone that believes in you, and you get to live with it at some, and then it ends. Obviously, that is a little bit difficult to still read out loud, even though I've read it a few times. And I am listening to friends' advice to not read all of these. And I understand that it's very hurtful to read them. And so it's the only one I'm going to read. And I share this. It sounds like I'm calling her out, and I share it now, not to call her out, but to call attention to something larger. It's not just her. This is just an example that I personally have. But if you've been in this situation too, you have endless examples because the reaction is common for someone battling alcoholism and substance abuse. And if you've been there or you're close to someone with this disease, you know these messages all too well. After 30 phone calls, I answered one. And it was like I forgot that these messages and these conversations were really a thing of the past. She was screaming at me on the phone and I couldn't even speak. And I calmly said to her, after receiving so many messages, because ignoring them doesn't really work. They'll go to social media channels. They'll go through other people. And so what I was taught to do in therapy was to sort of let her know that I'm receiving the messages. So it goes a long time and then I'll respond. And so I calmly said, Mom, I answered the phone. Mom, I'm receiving your messages, but they are hurting me. The way that you're speaking is very hurtful. And if we're going to have this conversation and you're going to continue to talk to me like that, I'm going to have to hang up the phone. And again, she's speaking over me. So it's always very difficult to tell, can they actually hear what you're saying or not? And a normal reaction is to raise your voice. But again, I've spent so many years in therapy learning that doing that is going to escalate it. So instead, I just stay honestly very calm. And so she speaks over me and says that I am a liar and that if I was molested, that I probably deserved it and that I am a piece of garbage for saying the things that I was saying, and that people are saying to her, how can she even call me her daughter? So I say to her, Mom, I have to go. And I hang up the phone. She obviously called back. I didn't answer. I decided I really wouldn't answer anymore, and I haven't. So it's been weeks, but ignoring them, like I said, makes it worse. So occasionally I'll respond with a text message letting her know that I'm receiving the messages and that, I'm sorry that this has hurt her, and that if she wants to have a calm conversation, then I'm willing to talk to her. After ignoring several phone calls one morning, I received 6 voicemails in a row until my voicemail was full again. And I had not listened to all of them, and I refused. I actually deleted almost all of them, but decided to listen to just one. And I'm going to play it so that way you can hear it. So here is that message.
Oh, and by the way, it might be a lifelong goal of calling you every morning, tell you what a bitch you are. Not that I ever want to see you ever again. You are never welcome here. It's over. You did it. You got your dream. You pulled away from the family. In fact, Wendy and I are talking today because, of course, who out of all people would fall into your fucking trap of lies? Is whatever. So, again, family reunion, probably not going to happen because, well, it might. It might, but you're not invited. You can't show up. No one wants you there. And it's not just our family. It's family too. They don't get this. They contact that. What is she doing? And, the only one. Oh my God, maybe this makes sense with the monkeys. I didn't listen to the whole thing. Halfway through, I was throwing up in the toilet, listening to your fucking lies and your fucking bullshit of what you think happened in your life. And you want to believe it? More power to you, honey. If I was a woman, I'd go, yeah. I'm a fucking woman who thinks this is fucking great. This is fucking wonderful because, oh my God, look what this one went through. It's all a fucking lie, Amanda. And everyone and anyone that lives in our family, like they know it's a lie. You're a liar. The truth is the truth, and you don't know anything about it. So every morning, you're going to get my podcast. And guess what? Why don't you air it? Put it on your podcast. Let them know what I'm saying. I'm all for it. Good for you. Good for you. Oh my God. Will I call CPS? Well, you'll play that game. Oh my God, send them to my house. See how wonderful I live in $1 million house that I paid for. Fuck no. You haven't spent one day with your child. You never will. You pawn her off on other people, put her in dance class, put her in private school, ship her off. You don't have to do shit. That's your mothering. And the same. Oh my God, don't involve my child. Well, your child is involved. It's just going to be. And someday, this will come to bite you in the ass. And I hope you're there to see it. Because, but then maybe you'll choose like everything else.
When I heard that message, and sometimes if I think about them now, I still freeze, even with all of the therapy that I've had, teaching myself not to freeze, because my mind and my body and my heart they're so numb. I try, hard to pull out what I've learned in therapy so that way at least I can come up with some sort of response. So after several days of messaging, I send something. I was going to read it to you, but it's basically something like, Mom, I'm receiving your messages. I can tell that you're hurting. I'm sorry that this information is hurtful. My intention was not to hurt you. I cannot talk to you if our conversation is going like this. I still love you. And that's basically what I send. That will then be met with obviously multiple other messages. And then honestly, I just decide not to read them. I delete the voicemails, which is what I always kind of tell my siblings to do too. What's interesting right now is they've kind of said they're not hearing anything from my mom, that right now I'm the target. And so she's going in hard. And it's actually been really quite quiet for them, which I am so thankful for, because I thought by opening up this can of worms that it was going to attack everybody from all angles. And really, it's only been at me. But that's okay, because I knew that by doing this, it was going to do something. So I'm actually glad that it's being directed my way instead of their way. And then honestly, the last thing I do is I really just pray for her to be able to overcome. And I sort of hope that maybe that more people knowing about this will get her to a place where maybe she'll realize that she needs help. Maybe that's too optimistic, but that is my hope. At the end of episode 1, part 2, I mentioned that my siblings and I have all had these shared nightmares of her screaming. If you've heard the voicemail, and if you've ever been involved with somebody who struggles with substance abuse, you have probably been in a situation where you've been on the phone with them and not able to actually speak at all. And so you really feel like you just have no voice. It's been a decade since I've had one of those dreams. Remember, I was kind of taught to shut it down with good tools from therapy. But those nightmares have now returned. You can imagine, after listening to that messages, how deep into the subconscious those things are, and how deep into the mind also those words sort of penetrate. So you can imagine how that affects your psyche, mostly because I forgot the memory of the hurt, not the words, but the memory of the pain associated with them. And so it reminded me of something. Words cut deep. And believe me, I have a few choice words from my mom that I would really like to say. I do. I've actually screamed them to myself, and I would love to write them to her, but I know that that would be the worst thing that I could possibly do. And also, I would never honestly share the things that I kind of wish I could say to her out loud, which would make me feel better in the moment, but they would be crushing, and they would actually be crushing to me, because lots of times those things aren't really what you really mean. In this situation, as I've been talking to friends and family members, I've really been like almost brought back to like being a child, and that, that sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me sort of rhyme that we're sort of taught in elementary school, that we learned as kids, which is very untrue, by the way. I don't want to call it a lie, but sticks and stones may break my bones, but names may never hurt me is honestly kind of a lie, because broken bones, they can heal, and they often heal stronger, and rest and time and some pain relievers can help alleviate the hurt associated with broken bones. Words, however, penetrate the heart and the soul, and they linger forever, unforgotten and unforgettable. They can be forgiven, but you cannot erase them from the memory. They exist forever. And so I'm going to sign off on this, and I don't have a plan yet for the next episode, so it's going to be a surprise to us all. But in the meantime, think before you speak, because words cut deeper than a knife. A knife can be pulled out and the wound can be mended, but words penetrate the soul. And so, I don't know about you, but I would rather sit in silence than let any ill-filled word echo in the heart of someone forever. Until next week.